Think about this. Over 1 billion records sold. I mean, that number's so huge it almost doesn't compute, right?
It's staggering.
But then you attach it to one name, Elvis Presley, and bam, it snaps right back into focus. And that nickname, the King of Rock and Roll.
Instantly recognizable, even now.
You hear that, and you just know who we're talking about.
He really was, well, singular.
Mm-hmm.
More than just a singer, you know. He kind of embodied this massive cultural shift.
Yeah, it's pretty rare to see someone hit so hard in both music and film like he did.
Definitely.
So today we're diving straight into his story, looking at those moments, those decisions that really forged the icon.
Consider this like a curated tour through the essential Elvis milestones.
Exactly. We're not just going over the same old story everyone knows.
No, we want to get into the undercurrents, maybe those surprising twists, and really try to get a sense of the forces that shaped the Elvis we think we know.
From his roots in Mississippi right through to, well, global superstardom and all the complexities that came later.
It's a story with so many layers. Deep layers.
Let's go right back. Tupelo, Mississippi, January 8th, 1935. Elvis, Aaron Presley.
Okay, but that middle name, initially it was Aaron, A-R-O-N. Bit of a quirk there.
Yeah, what's the story with that?
Well, it's fascinating how even his name had this fluidity early on. His parents, Vernon and Glattis, maybe they just spelled it Aaron by mistake.
Oh, maybe something else.
Or perhaps it was a subtle nod to his twin brother, Jesse Garon Presley, who was stillborn. Even Jesse's middle name, Garon, is slightly different from Vernon's father, Jesse Presley.
Huh. Interesting.
It's like this quiet foreshadowing, maybe, of how Elvis's own identity would shift and evolve. He himself seemed to prefer Aaron later on.
A-A-R-O-N.
Right. And that's the spelling his dad used on the headstone, the one the estate uses today. It's a small thing, but it kind of speaks to that evolving sense of who he was becoming.
It really does make you think about identity, doesn't it? This little shift, maybe unintentional at first, just becomes the accepted version.
Yeah.
And family was clearly massive for him. His mother, Glattis, seems like she was the real rock. His background was this really interesting mix: Scottish, German, Scotch-Irish, and Cherokee on his mom's side. But life wasn't easy.
No, Vernon, his father, he struggled to find steady work. He even ended up in prison for a while for forgery back in '38.
Wow, that must have left a mark on young Elvis.
Definitely. Gladys's strength versus Vernon's, let's say, instability.
Mm-hmm.
That dynamic probably played a huge role in shaping him.
Growing up with money worries, his dad being away.
Yeah, that could easily fuel ambition later on, right? That drive for security.
And music became his escape. Almost a sanctuary. Church, the Assemblies of God, gospel music, that was his first real taste.
Mm-hmm.
And then his 11th birthday, gets a guitar instead of the bicycle he wanted. That feels like a moment out of a movie, almost destined.
It really does. And it's amazing how early that talent started showing, even before the guitar. Winning that prize at the fair, singing Old Shep.
Right.
The guitar just became his way of expressing himself. Those first lessons from uncles, a local pastor.
But he was shy about performing at first. Seems hard to believe now.
Yeah, initially quite reserved about performing publicly.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests he had to kind of find his confidence alongside finding his musical voice. It was an instant swagger.
Hard to picture that shy kid later on, isn't it? School wasn't always a breeze either.
No. Being seen as a bit of a loner in 6th grade, then getting teased for bringing his guitar to school, playing hillbilly music, as they called it.
Always a bit of an outsider in those early days, it sounds like.
And that feeling probably fed into his unique style, you know? His exposure to black culture. Living in a black neighborhood, listening to Mississippi Slim on the radio.
That wasn't exactly typical for a white kid in the South back then.
Not at all. And Slim even helped him with his guitar playing, arranged a couple of early radio spots for him. That mixing of cultures, that was the bedrock of rock and roll, and Elvis was right there at the crossroads.
Absolutely crucial point. It didn't just appear out of nowhere.
Exactly.
And when the family moved to Memphis in '48, those influences just got stronger. More country, more pop, but also a deep dive into the blues and R&B scene on Beale Street.
He soaked it all up, developed his own style, even his look, influenced by the African-American stores and culture he saw around him.
Memphis was the real melting pot for him.
It really was the crucible where his musical identity started taking shape. And even then, you see this belief in himself.
Like that story about his music teacher.
Yeah. The teacher tells him he has no singing ability, and his response, he just sings, "Keep them cold, icy fingers off me." That's pure Elvis right there.
A quiet defiance, but totally sure of himself inside.
Absolutely. That spark was definitely burning early. And even before Sun Records, he was connecting with other musicians.
Learning from Jesse Lee Denson, hanging out with the Burnett brothers, Johnny Black.
Just kids playing country and gospel on the street, absorbing everything, going to those monthly gospel shows at Ellis Auditorium. All the pieces were slowly clicking into place.
Those early collaborations, just learning by doing, playing, that was vital.
Constantly absorbing, practicing, finding his musical tribe. Those school performances in '53, the festival, the picnic, they were like baby steps onto a much bigger stage.
And then came the moment. Sun Records, August 1953.
Walks in, pays his, what, $8?
Yeah.
Records My Happiness, and that's when your heartaches begin.
Why'd he do it? Just on a whim?
Well, he gave a couple of reasons. Maybe a surprise gift for his mother, maybe just to hear himself, see what it was like. But Sam Phillips, the owner, he clearly heard something.
Something promising, yeah. But not enough for a contract right away.
Not quite. It's
Wow.
intriguing, though, that initial spark of interest. Phillips recognized something unique, even if it wasn't fully formed. Just walking in like that shows some serious drive.
He went back in January '54, right? Another private recording.
Yep. I'll never stand in your way, and it wouldn't be the same without you. Still a big break.
And then came the Rejections in the Spring, that gospel quartet, the Songfellows,
Turned him down.
and that club owner in Memphis who told him to stick to driving a truck. Ouch.
Yeah, those had to sting. It just shows, even for someone destined for, well, that level of the road was bumpy. Lots of setbacks.
Could have easily destroyed someone less determined.
But Elvis kept going,
Yeah.
driven by that passion.
And then finally, the call. June 26, 1954. Sun Records needs him to try a song called Without You.
Right, but that didn't quite work out either initially. Phillips wasn't sold.
So he brought him back.
Yeah, the next week, to work with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. And that's when it happened. July 5th, 1954. That spontaneous jam session.
That's all right, Mama.
Exactly. It wasn't planned at all. They were taking a break, goofing around, and Elvis just starts singing this Arthur Crudup blues song, but like faster, with this totally different energy.
And Scotty and Bill just jumped in.
Instinctively. Sam Phillips hears it from the control room, rushes out asking, "What are you doing?" They apparently didn't even quite know.
Huh. So Phillips tells him, do it again. Hits record.
And captures that raw energy, that one accidental moment, that blues tune turned on its head.
Yeah.
That was basically the birth of Rockabilly.
And when that record hit the local radio,
The phones went crazy. People had to know who this singer was. The DJ, Dewey Phillips, he even had to clarify on air that Elvis was white because the sound was so heavily influenced by black music.
think about that, blurring those lines right from the start.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? And the B-side, Bill Monroe's bluegrass standard Blue Moon of Kentucky, done in that same upbeat style, it proved it wasn't a one-off. They were consciously merging these sounds.
And the single, released July 19th, sells 20,000 copies locally. Hit number 4.
That was huge for a local release back then. Real momentum building.
So the Blue Moon Boys are officially a thing. First public gig at the Bon Air Club that July, then regular shows at the Eagle's Nest, building that local buzz.
Creating a real stir in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
But then came the Grand Ole Opry debut, October 2nd.
Didn't go so well, did it?
No, the Opry audience, the establishment, they weren't quite ready for his style. Too raw, too different. The reaction was cool, to say the least.
And he supposedly said he'd never go back.
Yeah, that rejection, it kind of solidified his outsider status, maybe pushed him even further into his own unique sound.
But just 2 weeks later, they debut on the Louisiana Hayride.
And that was a totally different story. The Hayride, based in Shreveport, was much more open to new sounds. They embraced him. He became a regular star there.
A really important platform for him then.
Absolutely vital. Consistent exposure, bigger audience, chance to really hone his stage act.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, management changes. Bob Neal was his Memphis manager.
But then Colonel Tom Parker enters the picture in early '55. He was already managing Hank Snow, had those industry connections.
Parker, now there's a character.
Oh yeah, a shrewd operator. Some might say controversial, but undeniably influential in shaping Elvis's career trajectory. His arrival was a major turning point.
Parker helped sort out those publishing deals too, right? With Hill and Range.
Yes, setting up Elvis Presley Music, Inc. and Glattis Music, Inc. Getting a stake in his own song, publishing that early, very smart.
Gave them a lot of control financially.
Huge leverage. Parker understood the business side, that's for sure.
And the Sun singles just kept coming. Good rockin' tonight, Milk Cow Blues Boogie, baby. Let's play house.
That one actually cracked the national Billboard country chart.
Wow. And I forgot to forget, he was really building steam regionally.
By mid-55, the industry was taking serious notice. Cashbox, Billboard. They were flagging him as a major new country star, even though his sound was already pushing those boundaries.
And Parker was working those connections, pushing for a deal with a major label, RCA Records.
Right, and that deal came through in November '55. RCA bought out his Sun contract and recordings for $35,000. Elvis got a 5% royalty.
He seems like a steal now, but a big gamble for RCA then.
Absolutely, but it catapulted Elvis onto the national and soon international stage. Gave him resources Sun just couldn't match. It was the real launch pad.
And he hit the ground running. January '56, first RCA sessions. Nashville, New York, producer Steve Scholes.
And that's when musicians like Chet Atkins on guitar, Floyd Kramer on piano, and the gospel group. The Jordanaires on backing vocals became part of the sound, added a layer of polish, maybe.
Yeah, refined it for a broader audience, but kept that core excitement.
And then boom, Heartbreak Hotel, January '56. Straight to #1.
Followed by the first album, Elvis Presley, in March, also #1, millions sold.
That album was huge. Had Carl Perkins' blue suede shoes on it.
Though RCA held back releasing Elvis's version as a single right away. Smart move.
Definitely. Plus covers of Ray Charles's I Got a Woman, Little Richard's Tutti Frutti, even some of those earlier Sun tracks. It showed his whole range.
And suddenly he was everywhere, especially TV.
National television. The Dorsey Brothers stage show. January '56 debut, then 5 more appearances over the next couple of months.
That exposure was insane. Took him from regional hotshot to national obsession, like overnight.
TV was perfect for him. Showcased that charisma, that energy, ignited this massive excitement, especially with teenagers. And plenty of controversy, too.
Though that first Las Vegas stint in April '56, that was a bit of a misfire.
Yeah, the older, more traditional Vegas crowd wasn't quite sure what to make of him. Shows his initial appeal was really rooted in that emerging youth culture. Vegas wasn't quite ready for rock and roll yet.
But internationally, he was already huge. Late '50s, #1s in the UK, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Italy.
Even reports of his popularity in the Soviet Union, where his records weren't even sold. That's incredible reach.
Just shows the power of that sound, that image, transcending borders.
Music cutting through the Iron Curtain. Amazing.
And March '56, Bob Neal's contract ends. Colonel Parker becomes his exclusive manager, takes that 25% cut.
That solidified their partnership. A defining relationship, really, with all its ups and downs. Parker now had full control.
That 25% still debated today, isn't it? Whether it was fair?
Oh, absolutely. It raises questions about whether Parker always put Elvis's best interests first. More massive hits in '56. I Want You, I Need You, I Love You. And that killer double-sided single Hound Dog, Don't Be Cruel. Both #1.
Just dominating. But then that Hound Dog performance on the Milton Berle show, June 5th.
Ah, yes. The infamous hip swivel caused quite an uproar. Scandalous. The press went wild, really highlighted the generational clash he represented.
So the Steve Allen Show appearance felt like damage control.
Kind of. Singing Hound Dog to an actual basset hound, wearing a tux. Definitely an attempt to soften the image, make him seem less threatening, more family-friendly.
But then the big one, Ed Sullivan. Despite Sullivan initially saying he wouldn't have him on.
Sullivan saw the ratings potential. Couldn't ignore him. 3 appearances, September, October '56, January '57. That really cemented him in the mainstream.
And Variety magazine calling him the king of rock and roll in October '56. The title stuck.
Those Sullivan shows were massive, solidified his status as a true national phenomenon. And yeah, the King nickname became permanent.
And while all this music chaos was happening, he's starting a movie career. Paramount contract, producer Hal Wallace.
Supporting role first in Love Me Tender, originally called The Reno Brothers.
Filming started August '56, and the title song, Love Me Tender, became such a monster hit.
That they actually changed the movie's title to match the song. Shows Parker's strategy, integrating music and film right away.
Smart marketing. The film premiered November '56. His second album, Elvis, also hit #1 around then.
And the hits just kept rolling. Too Much, All Shook Up in early '57. Unstoppable.
Plus that amazing $1 million quartet moment, December 4th, 1956.
Back at Sun Studio. Just an impromptu jam session with Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash. Imagine being there.
Incredible. A real snapshot of history.
Those recordings, released years later, are priceless. Just pure raw talent.
His second movie, Loving You, came out July 57, loosely based on his life.
And that's when he dyed his hair black for the role. Became his signature look, pretty much forever, except for his army time.
Right. The soundtrack and the single teddy bear both #1 again. The formula was working.
Loving You cemented that movie star image, continued that successful music film integration. And yeah, the black hair just added to that whole iconic persona.
He also started working with the songwriters Lieber and Stoller around then.
Yeah, they wrote some fantastic stuff for him. Songs for Loving You, Jailhouse Rock, King Creole, that great ballad Don't.
Which was another #1.
But they had a falling out with Parker.
Apparently so. Their direct work with Elvis stopped after 58. Seems Parker was very protective, very controlling about who worked with Elvis and, well, the financial arrangements.
Shame they wrote some classics for him.
They really understood his sound. But Parker had his own way of doing things. Other writers like Ben Weisman, Sid Wayne, Aaron Schroeder became key later on.
March 57, he buys Graceland, that famous Memphis mansion.
Became his base, his sanctuary. Still a huge landmark today. And around the same time, he starts dating Anita Wood. That relationship lasted a few years, until 62, even amidst the craziness, trying to find some personal connection.
Graceland was more than just a house, it became a symbol. And yeah, Anita Wood represented maybe a search for some stability outside the spotlight.
He did tour a bit in 57, some U.S. dates, and those shows in Canada, his only gigs outside the U.S. ever.
But those early tours were intense. Huge crowds, sometimes disturbances. His fame was just off the charts, hard to manage.
And then, September 57, Scotty Moore and Bill Black quit the touring band.
His original guys from Sun Records, reportedly over pay disputes. Despite Elvis's massive success, they felt they weren't getting their fair share.
They came back later as session musicians, but that must have been a blow, a crack in the original team.
Yeah, highlights the financial side, the contributions of the musicians sometimes getting overlooked when someone hits big that fast. They were crucial to his early sound.
Then came Elvis' Christmas album, October 57, another #1, of course.
Included tracks from his earlier gospel EP, Peace in the Valley. He always kept that gospel connection strong, didn't he?
Definitely. A constant thread.
That Christmas album's success showed another side of him. That deep connection to gospel music was always there.
Third film, Jailhouse Rock, November 57. Another #1 title track and soundtrack EP beforehand, just firing on all cylinders.
Jailhouse Rock became iconic. That title song, the dance sequence, cemented that rebellious, charismatic image.
And then Uncle Sam Calls. Draft notice. December 20th, 1957.
Big news. But he got a deferment right to finish his next movie.
Yeah, King Creole. That must have felt like a lifeline at that point in his career.
Allowed him to make that film, which was actually a more serious role for him. Filmed partly in New Orleans, gave the music a cool Dixieland feel.
Filming was early 58. King Creole came out that July. Got good reviews for his acting. Soundtrack did well too, #2.
But by the time it came out, he was already Private Presley. Inducted March 24th, 1958. 3rd Armored Division. A huge shift.
A massive interruption to the biggest career on the planet. He could have tried to get out of it, surely.
There was talk of using him for recruitment, special services, but Parker and Elvis decided he should serve like a regular GI, though privately, he was worried about losing momentum.
He managed one quick recording session in Nashville during a leave in June 58.
RCA needed material. Had to keep the records coming out while he was gone.
But no public singing during his service, despite offers.
Nope. He seemed genuinely committed to doing his duty. Speaks to that sense of obligation, maybe wanting to be seen as more than just a star.
And then the absolute worst news. His mother, Glattis, died. August 14th, 1958.
Devastating for him. They were incredibly close. It affected him profoundly for the rest of his life, really. A wound that never healed.
He shipped out to West Germany in late September 58, stationed near Friedberg. Lived off base in Bad Nauheim with his dad, some family.
And that's when the Memphis Mafia, his group of friends, relatives, bodyguards, really solidified. His constant entourage.
Provided companionship, loyalty, maybe insulation from the world.
All of that. They became a fixture in his life, his inner circle, right to the end.
And it was in Germany, September 59, that he met Priscilla Bulu.
Just 14 years old then. Daughter of a U.S. Air Force officer stationed there. That relationship, a whole other complex story that would unfold over years. Her moving to Graceland, the marriage.
Started right there in Germany.
A significant meeting.
But even while he was overseas in uniform, the hits didn't stop.
Incredible, isn't it? RCA kept releasing singles recorded before he left or during that brief leave.
Wear My Ring Around Your Neck, number 2. Hard-Headed Woman, number 1. One Night, number 4. I Need Your Love Tonight, number 4. A Big Hunk of Love, number 1.
Plus 4 compilation albums. His popularity didn't dip at all while he was away. Shows how strong his fan base was, and RCA's smart marketing. He was still dominant.
So he returns home, March 2nd, 1960, honorably discharged, Sergeant Presley.
And barely catches his breath. 2 weeks later, he's back in a Nashville studio.
Wasting no time and straight back to the top of the charts.
Unbelievable comeback. Stuck on You, number 1.
Yeah.
It's Now or Never, number 1. Are You Lonesome Tonight, number 1.
And the album Elvis Is Back, critically acclaimed, number 2 on the charts.
Many fans consider it one of his absolute best albums.
Hmm.
And these were his first recordings in stereo, too. A new sound, technically. Less raw rock and roll, maybe broader genres.
A bit smoother, more mature, perhaps.
Definitely a shift.
And he does that TV special with Frank Sinatra, March 60, broadcast.
The Frank Sinatra Timex show. Performed his new hits, even did a duet with Sinatra. Big moment. Like a passing of the torch, or at least a huge validation from the previous generation's idol.
Signaled his staying power, his ability to appeal beyond just rock and roll fans.
But then, a surprising move. He and Parker decide. Basically no more touring. Until 1969.
What?
Except for a couple of charity benefit concerts in 61. The focus shifted almost entirely to Hollywood.
Moved to LA in 1960, planned 3 movies just for that year.
It was a strategic decision by Parker. Capitalize on the movie star potential. Hollywood meant big money, different kind of fame.
First film back, GI Blues, November 60.
Smart move. Musical comedy, played right into his recent Army service, big hit. Soundtrack album went to number 1. The tagline was something like Idol of Youth, now Idol of the Family.
Trying to broaden that appeal, but then he tried more serious roles again.
Yeah, Flaming Star, a Western, late 1960, and Wild in the Country, a drama, mid-61.
How did those go over?
Cooler reception. Critics weren't totally convinced, and fans seemed to prefer him singing. Led him right back to the musical comedies.
And the biggest one of those was Blue Hawaii, November 61.
Massive hit. Beautiful locations, light story, and packed with songs, 14 of them, including Can't Help Falling in Love.
Huge single, number 2, and the soundtrack album, number 1 for 20 weeks.
20 weeks. That really set the template for his 60s movies. Exotic places, lots of songs, not much plot. Very profitable formula.
He even signed a huge deal with MGM in 61, $500,000 per film, plus 50% of the gross.
He was a guaranteed box office draw. A major Hollywood commodity.
But amazingly, he still released non-soundtrack singles that were hits during this time.
Yeah, tracks like Surrender, number 1. I Feel So Bad, Marie's the Name, his latest flame. Good Luck Charm, number 1. She's Not You, You're the Devil in Disguise.
Shows he could still deliver pure pop hits without a movie attached.
The musical talent was still there, definitely. Not completely swallowed by Hollywood.
What about studio albums, not soundtracks?
He did release some. The gospel album, His Hand in Mine. Something for the Canner. Everybody went to number 1. Potluck hit number 4. They reflected that smoother Nashville sound that was popular then.
More polished country and pop.
Right. There was supposed to be another studio album in 63, but it got scrapped. The tracks just came out as singles. The focus was definitely shifting.
Because the quality of the movies and soundtracks started to dip, didn't it?
Yeah, as the 60s went on, they became very formulaic. Predictable plots, same kinds of songs. Even RCA execs were getting worried by 67 when the Clambake soundtrack sold poorly.
Serious music fans started tuning out.
Understandably. 3 films a year, often interchangeable. Think Girls, 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 Kissing Cousins, Viva Las Vegas.
Okay, Viva Las Vegas was pretty good. Great chemistry with Anne Margaret.
That's the exception that proves the rule, maybe. But then Roustabout, Girl Happy. Profitable, sure, because they were made cheap, but creatively stagnant.
And the music in them suffered. Often 10, 12 songs crammed in. Quality was inconsistent.
Reports say Elvis himself disliked a lot of the material he had to record for the films. Plus, those publishing deals with Hill and Range meant they supplied most of the songs, often by writers who didn't really get Elvis or rock and roll.
But the soundtrack sold okay initially, so why change?
Exactly. Little incentive. Though some decent singles still emerged, like Return to Sender from Girls, 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 or Bossa Nova Baby from Fun in Acapulco.
But generally, from 64 onwards, even his non-soundtrack singles weren't hitting as high.
Right. The big exception was Crying in the Chapel in 65, which went to number 3, but that was actually recorded way back in 1960.
So, what happened? Just the movie grind.
Partly that, the musical stagnation, but also the British invasion happened, the Beatles, the Stones. The whole pop music landscape changed dramatically. Elvis's sound started to feel a bit dated to some.
He met the Beatles, didn't he? August 65.
Yeah, a private meeting at his place in L.A. Imagine that room. Two global phenomena colliding.
Must have been wild. Did he try to update his sound?
There were signs. Those Nashville sessions in May-June '66 produced his second gospel album, How Great Thou Art.
Which won him his first Grammy.
Right. And singles like Love Letters, the Christmas song If Every Day Was Like Christmas, and even a cover of Bob Dylan's Tomorrow Is a Long Time. His new producer, Felton Jarvis, seemed to be pushing for a more contemporary feel, closer to maybe what the Beatles were doing.
But the soundtracks kept dragging him down.
Sales continued to slide. Double Trouble Clambake in '67 barely made the top 40 albums. The Hollywood magic was definitely fading.
By the time of Speedway, the films weren't even making much profit.
So they changed the strategy. Fewer songs in the movies, maybe just 2 to 4. Stopped releasing a full soundtrack album for every film. A major shift.
Elvis himself wanted a more modern sound too, right?
Yeah, singles like Guitar Man, U.S. Mail, A Little Less Conversation came out. They had a bit more edge. Modest chart success initially, but serious music fans were still wary. The damage of those movie years was hard to undo quickly.
He tried to break the mold with his last couple of films, didn't he?
Yeah, Charo was a Western, no songs basically. And Change of Habit was a drama where he played a doctor working in the inner city alongside Mary Tyler Moore as a nun. That was his last acting role.
Trying to be seen as a serious actor, maybe?
Seemed like it. But it was perhaps too little, too late for Hollywood to really see him differently.
But then everything changed. The '68 TV special.
A comeback special, that was the game changer. Originally planned as just another tame Christmas special.
But the producer, Bob Finkel, convinced Parker to go bolder.
Yes, and Elvis was apparently desperate for it to be different, to break free from the movie image. That decision saved his career, arguably.
Those rehearsals and tapings in June '68 must have been electric.
Totally. Especially that intimate in-the-round segment, like an Unplugged session before Unplugged was a thing. Reuniting with Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana for that part, their last time playing together. Pure magic.
Back to his roots. Raw, powerful. Plus the big production numbers, the gospel section.
Showed all sides of him. And that black leather suit.
Iconic. A statement, right? Elvis the musician is back.
Absolutely deliberate, stripping away the Hollywood fluff.
And the closing song, If I Can Dream.
So powerful.
Written specifically for the show at the director Steve Binder's insistence. He felt a typical Christmas song wouldn't land right after the intensity of the show, especially with everything happening in the country in '68. It had real social resonance.
A bold choice, and it worked. The single hit number 12, his biggest hit in years. And the TV special itself, broadcast December 3rd, 1968. Massive ratings. Highest of the season. Critical reaction was mixed initially, but the impact was undeniable.
It completely revitalized his career, reminded everyone why he was the king, paved the way for his next chapter.
Absolutely. Set the stage for a whole new sound and his return to live performing.
Which he followed up immediately with those amazing Memphis sessions. January, February '69 at American Sound Studio.
Working with producer Chips Moman and that incredible house band, aiming for a real, gritty, soulful sound.
And did they ever achieve it? The albums from Elvis in Memphis and Back in Memphis?
And the singles. In the Ghetto number 3, a huge topical hit. Suspicious Minds, his first U.S. #1 single in over 7 years.
Incredible. Plus, Don't Cry Daddy, Kentucky Rain, just a torrent of great music, a total creative rebirth.
Those Memphis sessions are legendary. Considered by many his artistic peak after the early years, Chips Moman got something raw and real out of him. In the Ghetto showed such maturity.
From Elvis in Memphis got rave reviews too. Contemporary, relevant, blending pop with soul. Critics saw it as a new path for him.
It felt like he'd finally broken free from the creative shackles of the 60s.
And then, the return to the stage. Las Vegas. Summer 1969.
The International Hotel,
Yeah.
offered him an unprecedented $500,000 for that first 4-week engagement. A huge gamble for the hotel, but they bet big.
He put together a killer band, right?
Oh yeah, a top-notch rock band led by guitarist James Burton, a full 35-piece orchestra, gospel backup singers, the Imperials in Italy, then the Stamps, and the female vocal group, the Sweet Inspirations. That basic setup became his concert sound for the rest of his career.
First show, July 31st, 1969. Huge event. Stars, press, Like, what was the show like?
A mix. His 50s hits, sure, but also the new Memphis stuff and covers of contemporary songs. Beatles, Bee Gees. He made it clear. This wasn't just a nostalgia show. He was current.
And the reaction.
Phenomenal. Broke Vegas attendance records, sold out every show, led to a 5-year contract for 2 seasons a year. Vegas became his new home base.
And the live albums from that era sold well, too.
Yeah, Elvis in person at the International Hotel, on stage. They captured that energy. Produced another big hit single, The Wonder of You. The king was definitely back on his throne.
And that's when the jumpsuit started.
Ah, yes. The iconic Vegas look. Started with white flared jumpsuits, macrame belts, then got increasingly elaborate over the years. More jewels, capes, the whole spectacle.
His concerts became these huge rituals almost.
Totally. The dramatic opening with Richard Strauss's Also Sprach Zarathustra, the theme from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Closing every show with Can't Help Falling in Love, and that famous announcement as he rushed off stage, Elvis has just left the building, all part of the legend.
But even with all that success, he started getting bored with Vegas.
Reports suggest the repetition got to him after a while. Performing largely the same show night after night, year after year, it's understandable creatively.
Did that affect his recordings? He did some Nashville sessions in June '70.
Yeah, those sessions lean more towards country and straightforward pop. Some felt it was a bit of a step back from the soulful intensity of the '69 Memphis stuff. The pendulum swung again.
Still produced albums like That's the Way It Is, Elvis Country, Love Letters from Elvis, and the single You Don't Have to Say You Love Me was a pretty big hit.
He stayed on the charts, definitely. But maybe not hitting those same creative highs consistently in the studio.
Then came the documentary, Elvis, That's the Way It Is, released late 1970.
Showed him rehearsing, performing in Vegas, but also footage from his first proper tour in 13 years, which kicked off September '70 in Phoenix.
What was he singing on tour?
Added powerful covers like Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water and the Righteous Brothers' You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. Really showcased his interpretive skills. The film and the accompanying album got good reviews.
And then that weird meeting with Nixon, December 1970.
One of the strangest, most iconic photo ops ever. Elvis goes to the White House, wants to volunteer as an undercover federal agent to fight the counterculture and drug use. Seriously. Expressed his patriotism, his concerns. Nixon was apparently a bit taken aback, but played along, gave him an honorary badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. Just surreal.
Wow. Okay. Back to music. More Nashville sessions in '71.
Yes, but accounts suggest his enthusiasm for studio work was really starting to fade by then. Still resulted in a Christmas album, The Wonderful World of Christmas. Plus, Elvis. Now, he touched me.
That won him another Grammy for gospel performance.
Right, and another album simply called Elvis. But it felt like touring in Vegas were now the main focus. His heart wasn't really in recording anymore.
The road became his primary stage.
Exactly. Declining interest in the studio grind.
Another documentary followed, Elvis on Tour, covering his April '72 tour.
Yeah, captured that live energy again. Also included footage from a studio session in Hollywood where he recorded Burning Love.
His last big top 10 hit, number 2.
And the flip side was Separate Ways, often paired with Always on My Mind in people's memories, though Always on My Mind was actually the B-side to Separate Ways. The film Elvis on Tour actually won a Golden Globe for Best Documentary.
No soundtrack album for that one.
No, RCA released a live album recorded at Madison Square Garden around the same time instead. Elvis, as recorded at Madison Square Garden.
But behind the scenes, things were getting rocky personally.
Yeah, his marriage to Priscilla was falling apart. They'd grown distant after Lisa Marie's birth, their affairs on his part. Priscilla left him in February '72.
Divorce was finalized in October '73.
Right. He started a relationship with Linda Thompson in the summer of '72, who he was with for several years. The pressures of fame were definitely taking a toll on his personal life.
And then, the biggest spectacle yet. Aloha from Hawaii, January 14th, 1973.
The first ever concert broadcast live around the world via satellite. A massive undertaking.
Reached millions, possibly over 1 billion viewers eventually, though those numbers are debated. He donated all the ticket money to cancer research.
A huge gesture. The double album from the show went straight to #1 in the U.S. A monumental global event, cementing his international legend status.
But after that peak, the decline started to become more apparent, didn't it? Health issues.
Yes. Looking back, there were those head injuries over the years. 4 documented incidents starting back in '56, including falls, being hit on the head. One in '67 reportedly knocked him unconscious.
Could those have had long-term effects we didn't realize then?
It's certainly possible, even probable. We know much more now about traumatic brain injuries. They could have contributed to later behavioral changes, health problems.
And the prescription drug use was escalating, started in the Army, worsened by the Hollywood lifestyle, the need to keep his weight down, manage the insane Vegas schedule.
And tragically, he apparently didn't see them as street drugs. Because doctors prescribed them, he thought they were safe, controlled. He reportedly studied the physician's desk reference, focused on the drugs rather than the addiction.
That's a really dangerous path.
Extremely. It showed up in his life, too. Growing paranoia, installing intercoms and cameras all over Graceland, living nocturnally, basically flipping his sleep schedule. And his whole entourage had to adapt, increasing isolation.
And yet, he kept touring relentlessly. Almost 1,100 concerts between 69 and 77.
Incredible work ethic, but devastating physically. The Vegas shows reportedly became rote, shorter sets, more rambling monologues. He even had to cancel the whole summer 76 Vegas engagement.
But people still came.
The crowds were still huge, which created this terrible cycle. He was dependent on touring financially and psychologically, even as it was destroying his health. Heartbreaking.
RCA saw his lack of interest in recording, too.
Yeah, new albums became less frequent, shorter sessions. They started relying heavily on compilations, live albums. The studio albums that did come out raised on rock, Good Times, Promised Land. Today were mostly pop ballads, country songs. The fire seemed gone.
They even brought a mobile studio to Graceland in February 76.
Tried to make it easier for him. Got about 12 songs done, which formed the basis of the album, from Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee. But a second attempt that October barely got started. He just couldn't or wouldn't do it.
And his relationship with Colonel Parker was souring.
Reports suggest growing disagreements over Parker's management, the finances. The cracks were showing in that decades-long partnership.
A final attempt to record in Nashville in early 77 failed completely.
So Felton Jarvis had to assemble Elvis's last official album, Moody Blue, released June 77, from leftover tracks from the 76 Graceland sessions, plus some live recordings. A very piecemeal end to an incredible recording career.
And his personal life was still chaotic. Broke up with Linda Thompson in late 76, started dating Ginger Alden, even got engaged.
Though some close friends doubted he actually intended to marry again, there was conflict in that relationship too, just constant turmoil.
But by early 77, people were noticing a drastic change. Tony Sherman described him as a caricature. Overweight, mentally dulled by medication.
Performances became visibly difficult, sometimes cut short. He canceled shows because he physically couldn't get out of bed. Fans are becoming worried, disappointed. He seemed to be retreating inward, focusing on spiritual books, becoming more erratic, paranoid. A terrible decline.
But he kept touring, all through winter and spring 77, despite a hospitalization in April. More mini-tours right after.
And CBS was negotiating for another TV concert special. The directors were apparently shocked by his physical state, his lackluster performances during rehearsals or test tapings, but filming was set for June 77 anyway.
The machine just kept rolling.
It seemed unstoppable, even as he was clearly falling apart.
Those last filmed concerts, Omaha, June 19th, Rapid City, June 21st.
That performance of Unchained Melody in Rapid City, many call it his last truly great moment on stage. So raw, so emotional despite his condition, those shows became the posthumous TV special, Elvis in Concert. Haunting to watch.
He finished his tour in Indianapolis on June 26th, went back to Graceland.
And then, in July 77, that book came out, Elvis, What Happened? Written by 3 of his fired bodyguards, Red West, Sonny West, David Habler.
The tell-all, detailing the drug use, the paranoia, the bizarre behavior.
It was devastating for him. A massive betrayal, exposing his deepest struggles just as he was at his lowest ebb. He tried desperately to stop its publication.
His health was just collapsing. Glaucoma, high blood pressure, liver damage, that enlarged colon, all made worse by the constant drug abuse.
A cascade of serious medical problems.
And then, August 16th, 1977, early hours back at Graceland after a late dentist visit. Talking about the tour starting the next day, the book, his wedding plans.
Took prescribed sleeping pills, couldn't sleep. Took another dose, a critical mistake. Went into his bathroom to read around dawn.
And Ginger Alden found him unresponsive on the bathroom floor later that afternoon around 2 p.m.
Rushed to Baptist Memorial Hospital. Pronounced dead at 4 p.m. Official cause, cardiac arrest. But the autopsy revealed a lethal level of prescription drugs.
The secrecy around the investigation, the conflicting reports. That fueled the rumors for years, didn't it, that he was still alive?
Absolutely. It created an air of mystery that allowed those theories to flourish.
Thousands of fans swarmed Graceland immediately. The funeral on August 18th. Then his body had to be moved to Graceland after someone tried to break into the original burial site. Just chaos and grief.
An unbelievable outpouring showed the depth of connection people felt.
And the cause of death controversy never really went away.
No. The initial denial of drug involvement by the medical examiner, then the toxicology report showing polypharmacy, 14 drugs, 10 in significant amounts. Later reviews pointing to accidental overdose from combined sedatives.
Questions about the doctors involved, especially Dr. Nitripoulos prescribing thousands upon thousands of pills.
His license was eventually revoked. The autopsy confirmed chronic illnesses too, diabetes, glaucoma, constipation, plus long-term drug exposure. There were theories about straining triggering the heart attack due to his bowel issues.
And even more recent analysis suggesting possible brain damage from the drugs and head traumas, a toxic reaction to codeine due to a liver enzyme issue, genetic predispositions found via DNA. It's incredibly complex.
A perfect storm of health problems and prescription drug abuse. Pinpointing one single cause is almost impossible and maybe misses the point. It was a culmination.
And Elvis is alive. Rumors started instantly.
Faked his death to escape fame, go into rehab, join witness protection, you name it. Fueled by the initial secrecy, the lack of public photos of the body, even a misspelling of his middle name on the tombstone initially, and just fans refusing to let go. Periodic sightings continue even today.
Part of the enduring myth.
Absolutely.
But whatever the details of his end, his legacy, it's monumental.
Undeniable. Over 1 billion records sold globally. 150 gold, platinum, multi-platinum albums in the US. 10 #1 albums.
3 Grammys, all for his gospel music, interestingly enough.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, obviously. 6 songs on the songs that shaped rock and roll list. Consistently ranked as one of the greatest singers, greatest artists ever by Rolling Stone, VH1, BBC, everyone.
The image, the voice, the king, countless movies, books about him, the whole Elvis impersonator phenomenon, Graceland being the second most visited home in the U.S. after the White House.
His music is constantly repackaged, rediscovered, remixes becoming hits decades later. His estate, Elvis Presley Enterprises, keeps his legacy alive and incredibly profitable.
Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, of course.
His impact is just immeasurable. Culturally, musically, he changed everything.
So reflecting on it all, what a ride. From dirt-poor beginnings in Tupelo to literally the most famous person on the planet. Then the isolation, the health battles, the tragedy.
An extraordinary life, full of the highest highs and the lowest lows. His influence on music and culture is just staggering, hard to overstate. And as we've touched on, there's just so much stuff, the music, the films, the books. We've barely scratched the surface here.
His story is just endlessly fascinating, isn't it? The rise, the fall, the music, the myth. It really makes you wonder, why are we still so captivated by Elvis Presley all these decades later?
Is it just the music? The groundbreaking cultural impact? The tragic element? The sheer charisma?
Or some complex mix of all of it? What is it about his journey that still holds us? Maybe that's something for you, the listener, to think about. What part of Elvis's story, hearing it laid out like this, really resonates with you? Because believe me, there's always more to explore.